Oh, okay. So thank you everybody for joining us today for this Be the Change talk about marine education from Falmouth Marine Conservation Group. So my name is Jax and I work at Cornwall Wildlife Trust and the Yorkshire Beach Rangers project. So I'm going to just do a quick introduction to our project and then I'm going to hand over to the lovely Becky from Falmouth Marine Conservation. So, I haven't actually presented on this for a while. Okay, yeah, so hello, welcome. So I work for the Yorkshire Beach Rangers project. We are one of 31 Our Bright Future projects around the UK. And we're basically aimed at getting 11 to 24-year-olds as kind of a gap where people tend to be lost to sort of conservation and nature-based activities. So we're trying to get 11 to 24-year-olds involved in their local environment and taking action in their local community. So we're a partner project. I'm based at Cornwall Wildlife Trust, but I spend one day a week at Cornwall College in Newquay in normal times. And yeah, so we come to an end in March next year. As the part of the project, we were to expand this amazing network. So in Cornwall, we've got this amazing network of 17 marine conservation groups. When we started up, there wasn't 17. And part of our role was to create 5 new marine conservation groups. So the groups that are coloured yellow on there, the ones that say VMCA, they're voluntary marine conservation areas, and they're the original group set up by the Yorkshire project, the original Yorkshire project between 2010 and 2013. And the ones, blue dots are from the Yorkshire Beach Rangers project. And then there's some others that have from the movement that started, and also kind of the blue wave of enthusiasm for marine conservation have set up independently, but are closely linked into the other groups. So the 5 Yorkshire groups, Yorkshire Beach Rangers groups were Bude, Three Bays, St Ives Bay, Mounts Bay, and the lovely Falmouth Marine Conservation Group. All of these lovely groups are in the network. But we also, when we talk about the Yorkshire network and we talk about these 17 marine conservation groups, it is much more than that as well. It's also all of the other marine conservation and conservation organisations that operate all around Cornwall. And we also link into groups in Devon as well, so Coastwise North Devon, Wembury, and there's a new one that's set up on the south coast as well. So it's not just those marine conservation volunteer-led groups, it's other organisations as well. It's all very, very interlinked. Okay, just one moment. So a little bit of background with Falmouth. Falmouth Marine Conservation Group started in 2016, and it was set up, as I say, by my predecessor, Nat, the Yorkshire Beach Rangers project, with 2 of the students, I'm not sure if Jade's here, but 2 students from Falmouth, from the University of Exeter, helped sort of get this going. So Meg and Jade were very heavily involved in the start of it. So these are pictures that have been taken in Falmouth, just giving you an example of why Falmouth and the surrounding area is an incredible place to have a marine conservation group and to be doing conservation activities. So why did Falmouth need a marine conservation group? Well, there's the special area of conservation for Fal and Helford and the Falmouth Bay to St Austell Bay SAC as well. So it is a scientifically important area. There's these incredible habitats, merle beds. So sometimes on the Falmouth beaches, you'll see these little they're kind of calcified, they are calcified, calcareous, they look like nubble, I call them nubbles. Don't know if that's a word, it's not a word. That's science for you. But they're these incredible beds, and they create this area, this habitat, which is incredibly biodiverse habitat, and it creates a home for other creatures. And those are protected. They're a biodiversity action plan species. And we also have these incredible seagrass beds. There's a lot more about seagrass at the moment, and the fact that it's a carbon capture area. So they're trying to plant more seagrass beds to increase carbon sequestration. But again, it's also this amazing habitat, and it's a nursery for lots of creatures as well. And you get things like seahorses, which is pretty cool. Also, you've got this amazing rich maritime history. It's a research hub. We've got the University of Exeter. We've also got the Falmouth University. So there's a hub for biosciences, for geosciences, also for the humanities and art. So there's a lot of energy there and interest in protecting the local environment in lots of different ways. And there's loads of marine activities that go on in this area too. So I'm going to hand over to Becky, who's going to talk a bit more about actual Falmouth Marine Conservation and the activities that the group itself does, and then she'll talk about the Education and Outreach Programme. So Becky is one of the Education and Outreach Officers for FMC. You ready, Becky?
Yes, so hopefully my Wi-Fi is going to stay with us. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah.
Okay, brilliant. So, hello everyone. My name is Becky Thomas, and I am currently just about to finish my second year studying marine biology at the University of Exeter in Penryn. And I've been part of FMC for the last 2 years now. For the first year in Falmouth Marine Conservation, I was their Sequest coordinator. This photo to the right of the screen of me and the binoculars, and the one below it is some of our Sequest events. So Sequest is run by Cornwall Wildlife Trust, and it's an event to basically collect data on marine mammals in the local area. So we're looking out for things like dolphins, whales, porpoises, seals, and I was running these events bi-monthly. So I also then started co-coordinating the education outreach team, which has been an incredible experience. And I'm just going to tell you a bit more about Falmouth Marine Conservation generally. So we put on events such as beach cleans. We also do rock pools, rock pool rambles, snorkels, nighttime rock pools. There's lots of rock pools around here. We all love them. And so the education outreach team, when I started university, it was being run by Chloe and James, who are absolutely amazing, and they did so much work to set up that part of Falmouth Marine Conservation. And they also did this in collaboration with Plastic Free Falmouth. So when I was in my first year of university, I just volunteered to come along to one session. This was actually my first session, which is also where I met Beth and Jazz, who are the other two girls in this picture. And we just absolutely fell in love with the whole concept and everything that Chloe and James had done. And they were looking for people to hand it over to because they were just about to do their final year of their degrees. So obviously needed to focus a lot more time on that. So me, Jazz and Beth pretty much jumped at the opportunity. So this is us three. And yeah, we have now been running it for 2 years. I think what made us all so interested and excited to take on the role was the fact that we'd all taken a bit of time out before coming to university, and we'd all done a bit of travelling ourselves and already worked for other volunteer organisations, so already had a real passion for the marine environment and also inspiring the next generation. So one of the things that outreach does is we run stalls at events such as freshers fairs or community led things, like we've had Plastic Free Falmouth's event in the moor where there's lots of stalls and there's lots of interesting things to go and look at, and one of our roles is to run the stall there at events like that. But our main thing is that we go into classrooms in Cornwall and teach about marine conservation issues. And we also do this in after school clubs. So we go to things like brownies and rainbows as well. So we have 3 sessions currently that we run, one on plastic pollution, one on overfishing, and one on Cornish wildlife. And we have created the resources for these so that they're available to 3 different age ranges. And we've set up the PowerPoints, we've written the scripts, we've organised the games and activities and crafts, and pretty much anything that you can think of that we needed to do, that's what we put our minds to. And I think one of the main reasons why we're so well received by children and teachers is that we're very honest, and we speak to children in a very honest and open way. We don't really see the point in hiding the truth. They are the next generation, and they need to know what kind of world they're living in, and actually truthful ways to move forward and to make the world better. Another reason why I think that we have been so successful in our outreach team is we have tailored our sessions to the national curriculum. So we make sure that whatever we're teaching actually fits in with what the children are already learning and what teachers are already giving. So we can just fit in, give our spin on it. It's quite an exciting thing for the children to have someone new come into the classroom. And we also make sure that we always give them a task or a piece of work to complete in the session, and this has been really well received. Teachers love this because it can go in their workbooks, they can put it up on the walls. It really shows their understanding. So hopefully you can read some of the pieces of work on the screen here. This is from a slightly older class, where we asked them to make a poster on reducing plastic. And then one of the other crafts that we do is we collect plastic bottle caps from our own personal usage, and then we hot glue gun them onto card, and we just ask them to make an animal out of the bottle cap and then write something inside the card, like a pledge to use less plastic, or to talk to their parents about it, or go on a beach clean or something like that. So these are some cute examples of that. I'll just wait so you can read this one. So it's really amazing as well, because the children always take on what we've said so well, and they always remember things incredibly well. And it continues to shock me even to this day, how you'll tell them something that's quite complex and then they'll just reel it back to you and completely understand it later on when we're doing the craft, which is really inspiring. And then this photo, hopefully when it comes onto your screens, I think is brilliant, because every time you look at a different child's face, it's absolutely brilliant. So we always try and have a real laugh, make it fun. And one of the most important things about our sessions is, although we are very honest with them, and sometimes the facts and things that we're telling them can be quite upsetting, we always make sure to end it on a high and what they can do to help, and positive changes that we can make. So it always ends on a really hopeful end. So another thing that we do as outreach coordinators is we give training to our volunteers. So during term time, we actually have around 50 active volunteers, and we give training sessions to them. So the main point of this is safeguarding, to ensure that the volunteers know how to be safe around the children, and how to keep children safe, look out for any problems. But also, one of the main things that we want to put forward to our volunteers is to take care of themselves and to look after their mental health. It's very easy, especially in volunteering, to find it hard to say no, and just to take on too much. So something we really push in our training is Like, it's okay to say no. You know, do what you can if you want to, but look after yourself first, because you can't give out if you're not looking after yourself first. And I think what motivates all of us is just a pure love for the ocean and a real kind of drive to protect it and inspire anyone and everyone into protecting that with us. So I think some of our main achievements, so this last academic year alone, we have taught over 1,000 children. And when I say academic year, that really only means from October to March, because that's our uni academic year, which is when all of our students are down here in Cornwall and able to give these sessions. So yeah, in 6 months, we taught 1,000 children about marine conservation issues, which is incredible considering we're all volunteers and most of us are students and have jobs and a social life as well. I just got a plane going over, so I'll just wait a second. So I think as well, a really great thing is that often when we go into a school and we give a session, say on plastic, often the school will ask us to come back and do another session. And often then they'll ask us to come back and do another class. And being asked back from a school is just amazing, because it shows, you know, they really have liked what we've said, they've liked what we've done. And there are now actually some schools in Cornwall where we've taught every single class in the whole school, which is incredible, actually. Another really nice thing is that children will come up to us at our other events, such as sea quests and rock pools, and say, you came into our school and you taught me this, and now I've brought my mum down to a beach clean. And that's just so sweet to know that what we've said has inspired them and got them to other events as well. And another really nice thing that happens often is we get cards and drawings written for us and made for us. So this was a very sweet one that we got. I've also had a drawing of, because I'm actually a marine mammal medic volunteer for British Divers Marine Life Rescue, and when we're talking about entanglement in plastic pollution or in overfishing of bycatch, I tell them about my experiences with seal pups getting wrapped up in nets and having to, in the rain and the cold of winter, try and free them. So I had a really cute drawing of me saving a seal pup where my plaits were all the way down to my feet, which was very sweet. And the children are always so keen to share stories, especially with the younger ones. We have to say, you know, are there any questions? And then tons of hands will go up and we'll start asking some. And really they just want to tell us what beach clean they've done or where they found the weirdest bit of plastic. And they always just want to share so many stories. And I think that's really nice too. Another huge achievement of ours was that this January, me, Jazz and Beth went into our first secondary school. So if I hadn't mentioned it before, all of the schools that we usually go into are primary schools. And we really wanted to go into a secondary school and make that next step. So with Cornwall Marine Network, we did this in collaboration. And we went and gave a talk on plastic overfishing, but also how me, Jazz and Beth got to where we are today, and the volunteering that we've done and the things that have basically inspired us to be outreach coordinators, and just to give these young adults really a taste of ways to gain experience in order to figure out what they want to do, regardless of what it is. So the day-to-day of being an outreach coordinator, if we had a session, is pretty much prepping all the stuff, making sure we've got, you know, the scripts and the t-shirts and the USB sticks, and all the crafts and everything. And then we drive to meet our volunteers. We usually do this on campus, and we decide who's going to say what. So like I said before, we have all the scripts already made. They're actually laminated, so we just write in whiteboard pen who's going to say which section, which is really handy. So if anyone's thinking of doing that, it's a great way to save paper. Yeah, that's cool. And then the admin side of things, Jazz has always done that for us since we've been coordinating it. So she's always been in charge of the emails, emailing schools, booking sessions, making sure we know as much about the class and the classroom as possible. But I think the most important thing with any kind of community engagement is just to always be adaptable and flexible, because you really have no idea what kind of curveballs will be thrown your way, and it seems that no amount of planning can really prepare you for everything. So that kind of brings me on to challenges that we've faced. So this can be anything from walking into a classroom and the layout being completely different to what we were expecting. So for example, if we were planning to do a craft and actually we walk into an assembly hall and then suddenly the craft's not going to happen because there isn't any tables and we need to do a game, and just being able to think on your feet and make that happen in a very calm and effective way is really important. And we've also had times where we've had children in the class with special learning requirements that we haven't actually been made aware of beforehand, so we've again had to adapt accordingly. Often volunteers pull out at the last minute, so having lots of backups is very important. And we've had times where the lead for the day has been ill, and this has definitely taught us that you always need a plan B and a plan C. I learned that the hard way. It's really important to know the route to the school, especially in Cornwall with all the little windy roads. It's quite easy to get lost, and just plan for eventualities like roads being closed or roadworks, that kind of thing. It might sound a bit obvious, but when you've got 101 things to think about as well, it's not always on the top of your agenda to check. And another thing is definitely make sure that the postcode for the school is correct and triple checked. There was a time where I turned up to a school which was the right name of the school and it was in the right town, but it wasn't the right school. And we were greeted with some very confused people at reception wondering why we were there and why we wanted to enter the school and asking for ID. But thankfully it was just across the road, so we got to the right school on time. So obviously, again, leaving lots of time is really important. And I think whatever happens, just not allowing it to knock your confidence is one of the most important things that I've learned as well. So where the programme is going, so officially me, Jazz and Beth are handing over education outreach this summer, because we are just about to embark on the final year of our degrees, and again we need to focus lots of time onto that. But we have a really keen group of volunteers that are wanting to take it on, so we're going to hand over to them virtually over the summer. Obviously with coronavirus, it's very likely that we won't be going into any schools, definitely for the first term, if not potentially the academic year. So it will be up to the new coordinators to decide what they would like to do, if they want to do any virtual resources, for example, but that will all be completely up to them. And again, there's no pressure for them to do anything. I'm sure they'll do wonderfully well, whatever it is they decide. So this is my last slide. I just wanted to talk a bit briefly about what you can do moving forward out of kind of this time of coronavirus, just to help with regards to marine conservation or climate change generally. And I think one of the most important things is, and I think a really nice thing that coronavirus has kind of brought us is just a bit of time to reflect and think about, you know, do I actually need all of this stuff? Do I need to buy it from this place? And just have a bit of a reset. And I think moving forward, that's something that we should really hold on to. And with that as well, it's that conscious thought of, where is this coming from? So whether that's the food on your plate or the clothes on your back, you know, can you buy it or can you purchase it somewhere more locally or more sustainably? And just ask those questions and have those conversations, I think, is really important. And I think researching and learning and then unlearning what we think we know and constantly questioning ourselves is really, really vital. And I think it's also important just to be wary of our own language when we talk about certain things which potentially we deem as a problem to conservation. So, for example, by targeting like a whole group of people or a whole country on their practices, can enforce negative ideologies that aren't necessarily in the right place. So I think it's important to be wary of movements that can discriminate against different groups of people, and just to question things a bit more. So, for example, it's one thing that we really press in our overfishing session is that, you know, there's nothing wrong with eating fish or choosing to buy fish. It's just thinking about, where are we getting that from? Because, you know, the mass industrial scale of fishing that we see in a lot of our waters is causing a lot of damage. So by buying locally and supporting local fishermen, you're doing a really great thing for your local community and your local businesses, and still getting the enjoyment out of that part of your life. Yeah, so I guess the takeaway point really is to also just have conversations.
Becky? Can anybody else hear Becky?
Nope, she's frozen.
Okay, thanks, Kathy. I was like, is it just me? Hold on. Okay, she's gone offline. So thanks, Jeremy. So thank you, Becky. I'll just see if she comes back online. She did say that she's having issues with her Wi-Fi today. Hopefully we can get her back on. If not, if you've got any questions, you can type them in the chat, and I can ask them to her later, and we can add it to the recording that's going to go on YouTube. Or if I can answer them, then I will try to answer them as well. Does anybody have any questions from any of that? There's quite a lot going on there. I was going to say to Becky, and I will say she comes back on, I really liked the points about being adaptable and flexible and having a plan B and a C, and she said allowing extra time for getting to places. I call it tractor time in Cornwall, because there's always a chance as a tractor to add 20 minutes to your journey. So that's good advice, I think, not just for education, but any kind of area of conservation. It's always been something that we've trained people to use. And I really liked, there was on one of the posters at the start, it said, join the fight for freedom, which I thought was quite a good rallying cry. If anybody has any questions, type them in, but if nobody has any questions, I'll just see if I can get Becky on. She's not back on. If no one has any questions, then we may call it a day there. A bit of an odd end. But thank you. Oh, she's coming back in. Hold on. Hold on. She always takes a little while to connect as well. And so she should be just joining now. So the Guy family, how old do you need to be to join FMC? Do you mean as a volunteer or just to be a member? You can actually unmute yourself. Like, as a volunteer, I think you have to be 16 and over to volunteer, and because most of the for the education and outreach team, I think you have to be 18 and over, just to do with safeguarding. But that's something that hopefully she's coming back in. Becky, she's still connecting, we'll be able to answer it better. Well, Jodie, are you able to share that? So Jodie is also part of FMC here.
Oh, hello, just turning my video on. No, I think you're right in saying that it would be 18 for schools, but yeah, I don't know if anyone is interested. Obviously, getting in touch with the group would be great, and we can just see how you can get involved as a volunteer or just as helping out the group also.
Thank you. I'm just going to put the email address in the chat. So yeah, it's info@falmouthmarineconservation.co.uk, and there's also outreach@falmouthmarineconservation.co.uk if you'd like to contact them. Okay, if nobody's got any more questions, Becky is trying to rejoin, but I think she's having issues. She's had to go back off and go back on again. So I think we might call it a day there. But thank you so much to everybody for joining us, and thank you obviously so much to Becky for telling us about the project. Honestly, the outreach and education team has just gone from strength to strength, and what they do is incredible. So yeah, it's I'm glad that you've all got to hear a bit more about it. And yeah, if you're interested in getting involved, then get in touch with FMC. Thank you very much indeed. Have a lovely evening, everybody. Bye.